Well, now let's go to our North Asia correspondent, Mark Willacy in Tokyo. Mark, what's the latest you're hearing?
What we're hearing, Joe, is that about 2 minutes after launch, the rocket broke into 4 pieces. It was apparently about 120 kilometres in altitude when this happened, so it would be about the stage where it was going to shed its first stage of the rocket and move on to the second stage. We understand that it fell into the Yellow Sea between Korea and China, and that it's been an absolute failure. It's been a bigger failure than their last rocket test, which was in 2009.
Any word from North Korea itself yet?
No, and interestingly, what you're getting from North Korea is a TV test pattern, so
Right.
There's to be no broadcast at all. But we have to say that Pyongyang has said it will make a statement in the next short while about this rocket launch. It may very well broadcast pictures of the rocket successfully launching off the launch pad, but I can tell you they will not show pictures, if they even have them, which they probably don't, of the rocket breaking into pieces.
How much of a setback is this for North Korea?
Oh, it's a major setback. They will obviously spin this issue and they will turn it into a great celebration of the 100th anniversary of the birth of their founder, Kim Il-sung. They will make this a great celebration of their nation and a great confirmation of their new leader, Kim Jong-un. But on the global stage, this is a major failure. But it's a great relief, I think, for nations like Japan, South Korea and the United States, which has been fearing for a long time that North Korea was developing sophisticated ballistic missile technology. This is showing to them that it's not quite there. They're not at the stage where they can even put a warhead on this missile, let alone have a missile that will go anywhere near the distance to hitting their neighbours.
It's going to be interesting to see how the North Korean publicity machine and the positive publicity machine tries to turn this around.
That's right. I think that's the big issue. We've been talking about, this missile being a game of brinkmanship by the North Korean regime. But for the North Korean regime, this was for domestic consumption. This was an issue that was about celebrating the birth of their great leader, Kim Il-sung, 100 years ago. It was about confirming Kim Jong-un, his grandson, as being the new heir to the throne, the new leader of this country. And this was supposed to be a great technological achievement, something that he could brag about to the North Korean people. Well, he'll probably still brag about it, but it really has not been a success at all.
And so, Mark, the expectation is we could well hear from the North Koreans within the next hour or so?
That's right. There will be an announcement. Of course, they've been selling this to the North Korean public as being a great technological achievement. They're putting a satellite into space. That's what they've been telling their people. They have to come up with something, and what they'll probably come up with was that it was a great success. Here's pictures of the launch. It went into space and everything's fine. But the truth is we're now hearing, at least from the Japanese, the Americans and the South Koreans, is that it was an absolute failure, that it was it really did not even get going, this rocket, before it exploded.
So even in this age of the internet, and well, presumably a lot of North Koreans can't get any access to the internet anyway, the North Koreans you would expect are still going to describe this as a huge success.
They will, and I think what will happen, though, is that the defector network in South Korea will start floating balloons over the border trying to tell the North Koreans that it was an absolute and spectacular failure, and that their great new leader is not quite the technological genius that everyone said he was. And that's been the big issue. We've seen Mission Control in North Korea, the director of that particular department this week, saying that everything they've done has been directed by the great leader Kim Jong-un. Well, if he's a rocket scientist, I think right now he's an abject failure, and I think that's a big issue for the world community. But if you're a North Korean, you probably will not hear that story at all.
Okay, just finally, Mark, is the concern now that North Korea is going to turn more enthusiastically towards this nuclear test? There's been suggestions that there's been a bit of activity at that nuclear test site in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that is the big issue, because we've got a situation where the South Koreans at least are saying that, yes, they have satellite pictures proving that there's been activity at that nuclear test site where there were nuclear tests in 2006 and 2009. They've seen the activity there at the site. They believe that there is something up at that site, and the last time they saw this sort of activity, there was a nuclear test. And ironically, in 2006 and 2009, when there were nuclear tests, that was preceded by a rocket launch. So, maybe they have history on their side. Maybe the pattern is correct and we could see some sort of nuclear test. If that does happen, well, that is a major issue. But I think for the United States and Japan and even South Korea, the failure of this rocket launch will prove that even if they could bolt a nuclear warhead on a rocket, they don't have the rocket to deliver it anywhere. It's just right at the moment anyway.
OK, Mark Willacy in Tokyo, thanks very much for that. And we'll keep in touch with you to hear the very latest when the North Koreans actually do come out with a statement.